Good morning, one and all. Not to worry, Sally will be back next week. I promise. In the meantime, be kind. Welcome to Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, where we take pride in honoring the first people of Florence, the Indians who strive to protect our environment where we are today. We give thanks to the tribe, past, present, and future generations. As we begin our service, let us all rise as we are able and sing our opening song, which we all should know really well by now, The Spirit of Life. Thank you, Jeff.
Sorry about that one. Okay.
Your cell phones, just like in the movies. Please remember to remain fully masked indoors unless you're up here, and you don't have to. So if you'd like to come up here, just let me know. Inside the program, you will see announcements, birthdays, and other events coming up. And anyone else have an announcement they'd like to make? I'll start off. Okay. We are really getting excited about our grand opening, which will be August 26th, Friday evening from 6 to 8. I have postcard invitations all ready to mail, which will go out the end of this next week. Next Sunday, there'll be some extra postcards here. So if you know of anybody in the community at all that you think might be interested in coming, please grab a couple of postcards. You can either mail them or hand deliver them as invitations to our grand opening. So excited about that. Also, we need volunteers. And you will see, let's see, Judy and Lynn, who else is on? Pam, Deborah, me, Jean, Catherine, we're all on that committee for the open house. See any of us about bringing light refreshments for that evening, because we're going to need some volunteers to do that. Something that could be left over possibly in the fridge for Sunday when we have our first service on the 28th at the new facility. And that's a little segue into what Deborah would like to say about how that's going.
Yay.
Well, I just want to ask you all to keep your fingers crossed that we pass all of our inspections before August 26th. We failed one or a couple of them last week and are working on remedying those situations. The emergency egress lighting was done per the plans, which were approved by the building department. When they came to inspect them, they changed their mind and decided that wasn't what they wanted after all. So Georgia had to add a whole bunch more. emergency lighting, so now when the power goes out, the whole building lights up like a Christmas tree, inside and out. And so we still have a whole bunch more inspections to pass, and we're finishing up on the kitchen, and our budget, of course, is, who knows where it is, someplace in the stratosphere.
I know someone who knows.
Yeah, I can tell you the bad news about that. We have, our materials costs were very reasonable, but our labor costs have been very high. And we still have 3 workers left to finish paying, which is going to be a large chunk of change. But the good news is that all the final touches, the appliances, furnishings, and decor are being paid for by private donation and won't be coming out of the FUUF accounts. So we will be ready by the grand opening.
We will be ready.
Yes, we will.
Let's all affirm that together. We will be ready. We're going to be there. We're going to have fun. All right.
More announcements?
So let's see, what did I forget?
Announcements.
Cell phones.
Announcements.
Okay, come on up, Mark. Special thanks to our reader this morning, Ashley, who's filling in for Jim, who couldn't be here. She's just one of those people that will tell me what to do and I'll do it. That's the kind of volunteers we need. Really appreciate it. So Mark, go ahead.
So on August 28th, Sunday, we'll have our service, but then at 2 o'clock, I'm bringing in 2 climate change people from Cottage Grove. We've adopted them as a climate change sister city, and it's Dow O'Brien and Richard Sedlock, and they're both excellent presenters. I've seen their files of their work, and so that'll be here from 2 to 4 on August 28th. That's Sunday after we right after we right here on our stage. After pursuant to approval and all that, if by some small chance we don't have this have the place done, it will be here at the senior center, as I believe with the services. But it's looking like it's going through from what Deborah's saying.
Okay, so you're saying it's going to be at FUUF unless they
Oh, I
get
said
past.
here, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Okay, no, it's going to be at FUUF
Okay.
at the
2
Hesida
o'clock.
Beach, from 2 to 4, unless it isn't, then it'll be here. But it's going to happen one way or the other. So you'll have more information about it. I'll put it in the blast.
Very good. Very good. Well, maybe we can just stay after service that day and have visiting and refreshments, then go right into your meeting. Maybe that's asking a little much. Hold on.
Sounds good.
Are there any other announcements? Yes, Don, come on up.
Pardon me, couldn't get through. Good morning. Just wanted to address the free lunch. Last week was the first week in 2.5 years that we actually had the free lunch program, or the soup kitchen. And I wanted to just recognize, we had a wonderful group of people. We served 39 bowls of soup and salad. And the Methodist Church praised the support. FUUF has always been a big supporter over 25 years with their program. It's been good. I can't thank enough all the volunteers that came in. I had 9 people I wanted to recognize. If you would like to stand up or just show your hand. Amy, myself, Karen Hernandez. She made a fabulous salad, huge salad for everybody. Ray and Judy provide a wonderful recipe soup. Unfortunately, Judy got sick. Sally came in and
Not from the soup.
it was a huge hit. There was none left. And Sally came and made it. Martin Haggard, a huge on me.
It's
He
Hager.
was- Is that Haggard?
Yeah.
Okay, he did a wonderful job helping, and, I mean, he even knows how to handle that vacuum cleaner. Ryan did a wonderful job for his first time, he's back there.
Right on.
Sandra McKibben, she's not here, of course Sally Watts. I thank you all, I want you guys to always feel welcome to come anytime to help us. The biggest thing we need is always 2 cooks, and I'm not a good cook. But all the volunteers that helped clean and cook and prep was great. And we are only doing it one Thursday each month, not like in the previous years where we did maybe every week. So I hope you'll support it. This program is going back many years ago, even before FUUF had a big church facility. Again, thank you very much.
Right on.
Thank you, Don. Any other announcements? I would like to ask if there are any new people here today? Haven't seen you before? This is your first time? No, not first time? Okay, all right. I will ask Ashley to come and light our chalice, start our service. With this reading from Judith Quarles, A Community of Faith. At this hour, in small towns and big cities, in single rooms and ornate sanctuaries, many of our sibling Unitarian Universalist congregations are also lighting a flaming chalice. As we light our chalice today, let us remember that we are part of a great community of faith. May this dancing flame inspire us to fill our lives with Unitarian Universalist ideals of love, justice, and truth. So it is. And Ashley's standing by, good, to do our joys and concerns.
Okay, so obviously Catherine's not here either, so that's why I'm here. I'm Ashley, and I'm challenged by my mask apparently. Let's do mine too. There you go. Good? This is time of the service where we share our joys and our concerns. We do this to remind ourselves that we're part of a loving, safe community. There are people around us who are happy for our triumphs, as well as compassionate for our sorrows. We are never alone. If there's something that you would like to share, you can come on up here, we'll give you the mic, and share your joys, share your concerns, ask for some support and love, whatever you want to do. Just come on up and we'll drop a shell. You can drop a shell however you want to roll. That's all right. Oh, here, let's use. Probably not on.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm going to say something I never thought I would say. To the people of Kansas, thank you all.
Absolutely. Yeah, who would have thought?
Testing.
You have a friend, I guess the valve in his heart, I guess something went wrong with it, and according to him, it's inoperable and incurable, so he doesn't think he has much long left, so I was wondering if we could all pray for him, and, you know. But for a joy, I am going to have 5 months clean and sober on Tuesday. So. Well, my friend's name is Andrew.
Thank you, Michelle, and for both of you.
I have a friend of a friend in Tahoe whose daughter is missing. She didn't come home from a dance about 45 minutes away from where they live. And search and rescue is on it, but we're all very concerned, so.
What is her name?
Her name is
Oh, that's okay.
Kylie, and her mom's name is Lizette.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is for Kylie. Yep. It's on.
All right, I got a joy today. It didn't sound like a joy. It's a little bit of sadness. I lost my friend Herb on Monday. Been a rough few months. I think he went into Green Valley Rehabilitation in Eugene in February. And many times when we would talk, he wished there was a way to hurry the process along. And I kept thinking of Bruce Shelley and his efforts to make that whole process be more humane than it is now. The joy is that I got to spend a good year and a half with him, very close, taking care of his, banking, and it all started off with cleaning his gutters. But anyway, a good man, a lot of good stories. I've definitely cherished the time. His name is Herb. Herbert English.
Thanks to her. Anybody else? All right. This last shell is for the folks we don't know about. The shy ones, the ones who are in too much pain, physical, emotional, spiritual pain, however it manifests. Unable to speak out, but we include all of you in our circle of love. So we're creating a new history here, determined by the love and compassion. Blessed be. Can't have too many.
That's right. Thank you, Ashley. Do you want this, Ashley?
She's kayaking,
I'll
she's
take
all
it.
done.
All right.
That's for you.
Okay. All right, Jeff has a reading for us.
This is from Conversations, Book 1. You say it is difficult to walk the path of Christ, to follow the teachings of the Buddha, to hold the light of Krishna, to be a master. Yet I tell you this, it is far more difficult to deny who you are than to accept it. You are goodness and mercy and compassion and understanding. You are peace and joy and light. You are forgiveness and patience, strength and courage, a helper in time of need, a comforter in time of sorrow, a healer in time of injury, a teacher in times of confusion. You are the deepest wisdom and the highest truth, the greatest peace and the grandest love. You are these things, and in moments of your life you have known yourself as these things. Choose now to know yourself as these things always. Okay, we're going to go into the hymn. Sally's asked me to play it through once, so I'm going to do that, but that's going to be the first verse. So if you don't know how to sing along, come in on verse 2, and no fear, verse 1 will come back at the end.
And Mark knows this one, at least the tune, different words. So he's going to come up and help us.
Does anybody else?
Anybody else know? Want to come up here?
Okay, I'm a choir of one.
And I want you here with the microphone. So
I'm not
everybody
sure
can
how I
hear.
acquired that title.
Because you're the only one who showed up.
Okay, we'll dispense with the jokes.
Let him play it once through.
You're gonna do one, I'm gonna start with verse 1, but go ahead and play it through once so people have it.
This is gonna be verse 1.
This is
Playing it through.
Do you want me to sing with it?
No.
It's up to you.
Sure.
Okay.
So confusing.
Surprised by joy, no song can tell, no thought can compass. Here we stand to celebrate eternal love, to reach for one another's hand. The unknown other gifts is this. As gift alone to mortals given, the love of parent, love of friend, that keeps our hearts a lesser's hand. Faith, hope, and love here come alive. Life's deepest treasure is made known when in forgiving, giving all, yes, separately, two are as one. So can tell, no thought can compass. Here we stand to celebrate eternal love, to reach for one another's
Thank you. That was wonderful. Jeff and Mark, we certainly appreciate you helping us through some of these hymns that we don't know. And that just makes it all more joyful to have you doing that. I really appreciate it. And one of these days, maybe we'll have a full choir up here. Who knows? Right? We confirm that. All right. Oh, and now we have another, oh no, we don't have another hymn. We have our speaker. And I am delighted to introduce Dr. Dean Shrock, who I count as a friend. And he's a friend to all of us here at FUUF, and we always enjoy his message. And I'll let him get started with that on faith, hope, and truth. Dean.
Well, it's certainly nice to be back.
We can mic up a little bit.
Okay, Jay, how am I doing?
Get it, tip it up, there you go, all right. There you go, good.
He says my voice is too soft for his recording. So, we didn't have a theme for this month for the Unitarian, so I had the opportunity to create a talk on whatever subject. So I chose to talk about hope in particular and share an important story that I think is filled with a genuine message of hope. I certainly appreciate in doing the joys and concerns and hearing about so many things that don't go very well. And so we certainly have reason to question and be less than hopeful, sometimes downright hopeless, but here we go. So for the past 3 months, I've been working with a young man, age 39. It's interesting what young becomes as we get older, who has inoperable brain tumors. And I got a phone call from his father, who I knew very well, back when I lived in Pennsylvania and worked with the cancer centers. He was actually the human resources person. And his brother-in-law was the president of this oncology group of physician management group of cancer centers. Anyhow, Eddie, his son Ryan, the 39-year-old fella, he said, had these tumors and would I be willing to work with him, help him? And of course, I was very willing and pleased. You know, if a friend reaches out, it was like, sure, why not? And it was interesting how he said also, in asking for my help, that his brother-in-law, who was the president of this physician management group, had actually said to his nephew, Ryan, you do whatever Dean Shrock tells you to do. Now, I tell you that not because in some way to acknowledge my role, but that how unusual it was when I worked in those cancer centers. I never really considered myself kind of a frontline treatment person. I was more the one who developed all their psychological services and how I could help in that way, and I taught my wellness classes. But now I want to tell you this story that I think you'll find interesting around why I think this doctor now was saying to his nephew, did you do whatever I have to say? So, back in sometime in the 90s, I had been working with a number of hospitals, but in teaching my wellness program, I got to know a lot of people pretty well. They kept coming back to my classes, and I would hold picnics, remember, and made sure that I got them out and engaged in life rather than sitting back and withdrawing and waiting to die. So I got to know this one fellow and his wife pretty well, and I got a phone call from his wife one day, really quite desperate, and said that her husband was in the hospital and would I please come to see him, which of course I was glad to do. When I got there, though, I didn't realize that he really was only given like a day or two to live. But still, you connect, you do what you can to be there to comfort him and her. And this fellow had become pretty good at developing his intuition. I taught that as part of my classes. You can go within and connect with a spiritual intelligence, whatever you want to call that, and this inner voice and wisdom. So I was a bit surprised when he was in such dire condition that he was actually willing and able to go inside and do an exercise to try to connect with this source and perhaps give us some direction. And honestly, what happened wasn't really that informative or helpful in terms of what was said within that exercise. But when he was coming back out to his outer consciousness, he sat straight up in bed and said, I know what it is. And then proceeded to tell me about a very emotional event in his life and how guilty he felt and so forth. And now with his wife sitting there, she admitted she already knew what it was, without getting into the personal stuff. And in that emotional release, I knew that it was going to be almost certainly helpful, even though we were somewhat seemingly at the end. And it's interesting that he said, I had to get this off my chest. And for what it's worth, he had lung cancer. So you look at those coincidences sometimes and wonder, again, maybe this is going to be significant and helpful. I remember walking out of his room and seeing a nurse who I knew well and saying, I think he's going to be okay. And she rolled her eyes at me. Again, he really was expected to die. So the next day, I called the hospital to see how he was and told he'd been discharged to home. Now, medically, there's no way he could have been. And then I even called him again that was a Friday, on Saturday and Sunday, and he was at home and doing pretty well. So when I was in another hospital on Monday, where this doctor, who I knew well and said he was supposed to die, I told him that the fellow was at home and doing pretty well. And he looked at me like I was nuts. He said, he's dead. And I said, well, that's interesting because I talked with him on Friday in the hospital, called him on the weekend at home, he'd been discharged, and he's doing pretty well. So when did he die? So now he was still really upset with me, but really more confused. And he had a nurse get on the phone, call the hospital, and confirm that he's dead or been discharged. And of course, he was told that he'd been discharged. So now he was still very confused. I mean this when I say doctors don't like when things don't go the way they're supposed to. Even though, forgive me, that he thought he should have died. But he said to me, because he was so convinced and confused, he said, I'll bet you $100 he dies in the next 30 days. You know, this is a God, forgive me, I'm telling the truth, this really did happen. You know, it's behind the scenes kind of stuff, but as part of my story to hopefully get your attention and around a message of hope. So, at first I'm thinking, the guy should be dead, he wants 30 days. And then I'm going, but you know, I really want to make a point. So God forgive me, I took his bet. Now here we are in front of, I can't tell you how many other staff going, what in the world is happening here? So interestingly, for what it's worth, when the 30 days were up, I was sure this doctor was going to forget it. He went out of his way to have, in radiation therapy, they're taking your photograph all the time. They have one of the therapists take a picture of him giving me the $100 bill. For what it's worth, they gave it to the patient and his wife. But the importance is that, I mean, heck, in the 30 days he'd gone on a couple fishing trips. It's remarkable what can happen. And, you know, I would never say to anyone, if you just do a certain thing, you're going to get better, or whatever. But I'm always about, there are things we can do to increase our odds. So no matter what we're going through, and absolutely in this case, there's no way he should have lived, but not only did it affect his quality of life, but his quality of death. And so he was out fishing again the weekend before he died. So it's remarkable how psychological or emotional issues can really impact our health. And I'm going to lead into another thing that I think is very important related to my story now about this doctor's nephew. So when I talked with this young man at first, in fact, he's absolutely given me permission to read from my progress notes. There's normally a very serious issue of confidentiality, but he wants this story out there. He wants people to know there's absolute reason for hope and ways to face adversity and do it quite well in this case. So here's the first session. I've just been so unhappy, fighting with everything. Work, kids, trying to get them through the day. In-laws, don't want to be mad or fight anymore. And then he started crying and cried throughout most of the session, actually. I just want to be happy. I cared so much about work and money and winning, so competitive. I'm just so tired. I don't care anymore. I just shouldn't care about any of it, but I couldn't help myself. I had to win at everything, and it's so exhausting. I just can't keep going. I want to be done. I can't fight anymore. It just doesn't matter. So then we went on and discussed his life priorities, which is my whole point around doctor's orders go fishing and what I taught in my wellness classes. And in that very first session, I offered to have him go inside and help him do that, and actually talk with his tumors. And if you're not familiar with this may sound a bit odd, but I talk about this clearly in my book, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before. Everything is consciousness, as weird as that might sound. Again, for real, you can talk with, in this case, your symptoms. And so, it was interesting, pretty quickly, he got an image of what he called a grayish-brown blob. And I asked him if he would be willing to make them a deal. That is, as I quickly sized up, it seems such a classic case to me about needing to reprioritize our lives and go fishing. He had a tremendous imbalance in his life between always having to win and doing what he would really love to do. So he asked the tumors, with following my direction and instruction help, if in fact he reprioritized his life, he really made a good effort to do this, will the tumors go away? And they said yes. So this was a heck of a first session where I thought that we were on a pretty good, strong path and something that really might make a difference. Then in the next session, is only, so 2 days later, I've been working with them 3 days a week now for the 3 months. We did another exercise where we go inside and meet your inner advisor, or again, the spiritual intelligence part of you, your soul, whatever you want to call that. And this is the image that came to him in this exercise. A perfect white circle, no imperfections, like a pearl, pure, tough, hard. And he asked, what can I do to get better? What caused this? She said, there's nothing that I did. I can get better. So it was interesting, again, how quickly you can go within and make these connections and get really good, helpful information. Now, it's interesting, the reason why I used a feminine pronoun here was that she felt very feminine to him, like his mother, and someone he could really trust and so forth. So that when from that time on, because he began to do this daily, and we always made this connection whenever we met, we just called her Pearl. So from now on, when I refer to Pearl, it is his very special connection with his inner wisdom. So it was interesting then to go on and very realistically, but in fact these are right from my notes, he didn't always have good days, as you might imagine. And so he had to go back to Penn, the University of Pennsylvania, to now have an MRI, again to make sure of what exactly it showed and his diagnosis and prognosis. And this is something, again, is advice to help you and others around. Negative comments are not appreciated. And so when he was told straight out at Penn that this is the worst MRI they've ever seen, this was not helpful. Even though it's meant well, you know, just somehow we say things that I'm not sure we fully appreciate their impact. So he came back, and this is very sensitive kind of stuff, but now thinking, how do I say goodbye to my children? He has a 6-month-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-year-old. How do I say goodbye to my wife? And so forth. So I'm really feeling the emotion as you might in this situation, understanding just how dire this situation really was. So I feel like this is taking a bit of time, and I don't know how much more I want to get into following these notes, except that I want to make a couple comments around how well he was doing in terms of making this connection. One of my favorite was, I'll just try to remember this, but maybe this is 2 months into working with Ryan. And God bless Ryan and his, to his absolute credit, daily making contact with Pearl. But anyhow, Ryan started to feel much more confident that he could really do better. And at one point, Pearl said to him when he asked how he was doing and would he be okay, she said, "We can change the world. We can do anything." Now, I've been doing this a long time, but I have to tell you, to hear those words, and because of how this had progressed on the connection he had made, I went, holy smokes, and I'm going for myself now, because you hate to put yourself out there and think, and maybe even say, you know, suggesting he can beat this when, medically speaking, the odds are just almost as bad as they can be. But I was convinced, you know, I thought actually early on he could make it, but now it's like, there is no way he's not going to make it. So here we now are with Ryan. And this is notes from actually just last week or very recently. And so his words, he has an immense feeling of hope. I'm going to beat this thing. He knew that what he was doing was working. Oh, this is another interesting story, though, again, that how he's so clear with me that his chances were good that he was going to really beat this. So one of the things Ryan realized on his own, when he went inside, not only could he ask his questions relative to cancer, but he figured I could ask about other things. Now, he's an assistant professor at Penn State in graphic design. And he had been starting to write a children's book. And actually his energy is so good now, he said he was more productive now in writing this book and doing some other things than he had before his diagnosis. And he found that Pearl was giving him directions, instructions, how he could write his book and, you know, how to get a publisher for the book and so forth. So then I shared with him how he could get information and other things and so forth. And he was telling me how his son, his 6-year-old, right, actually just turned 7, I was told, had a baseball game that night, but it was supposed to rain. And it was going to be under the lights. It was going to be a really big deal, and he wanted to be able to go to that game and see his son play. So I told him my story. If you'll remember this, I know I would have shared it, I've written about it, is that when I had the cancer centers, was with the cancer centers, remember I would hold picnics, again, to get people engaged in life. And what I was told, but I'm admitted, realizing but many years later, was that it never rained on our picnics. Honest to goodness, it could rain before, it could rain after, it could rain around. It never rained on our picnics. So one time I remember somebody saying, oh, it's supposed to rain, I wonder if we'll have a picnic. And someone said, it never rains on Dr. Shrock's picnics. Truth. But now I'm going, you know, okay, how could that be? And that's just a very, very unusual coincidence. Well, then I ended up really looking into it and wrote about it. And anyhow, in sharing this story, with him is around, you know, I think that it's possible, you know, you could ask Pearl for help with the weather. And God bless Ryan, he's so open and willing to work with me. And so he goes inside and he asked Pearl if she would help him with the weather tonight. Her favorite words are, it's almost like a, I don't know, a parody or of course. No matter what he asks, and not just like she's trying to placate him, it's like, of course. You know, can I do something? Of course. For what it's worth, it did not rain at all. And they had a wonderful time. Oh, and this is another one that I just felt like I wanted to say, because coming from this Dr. Colkett, you know, he's an oncologist. He's as smart as can be. While he was getting his MD at Penn, he got his MBA from the Wharton School of Business. This is a very bright man. And when Ryan mentioned at some point a reference to his illness as terminal, his diagnosis as terminal, he said, it's the only time I've seen Uncle Doug really mad at me and yell at me. He said, this is not terminal, and it's treatable. That is so unusual in my experience for someone to speak up like that in his position, to say to you, again, to look at this positively as best you can always. It does make a difference. So hopefully that has meaning for you, certainly as much as it did for me. And then one last thing. When Ryan went inside, because in the next session I said, you know, when it didn't rain, I said, why don't you check with Pearl and see if she had anything to do with it? So he went inside and asked about controlling the weather. And when he asked if she had anything, he said, all you have to do is ask. Just ask. So that's a really big part of my message today, is not only hope, but the idea of going within. And Pearl told him in another time, you are not alone. And so I want to share that with you as strongly as I can, no matter what you're going through. You're not alone. There's always that connection and that willingness to help. This morning, you know, my intuition works with songs. So while I was reviewing my notes and just preparing breakfast, and I got this James Taylor song come through. You know, winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you have to do is call, and I'll be there when you need a friend. So, I really didn't check my time, so I'll just say a little bit more, and I don't want to run too long here. I'm okay? Okay. So, you know, having been doing this kind of work a long time, I find it interesting to look in my little library, and here's one by Norman Cousins, Head First, The Biology of Hope, where Norman Cousins, remember, he was the one who wrote Anatomy of an Illness, and how he said he got better by watching Marx Brothers films and laughing. But this is 10 years of research at UCLA talking about the role of hope in the mind-body connection. Then Catherine lent me this book recently, Radical Hope, which I thought was fascinating. Again, for my talk today, to tell you there's an awful lot of evidence. This isn't just, I'm up here like a cheerleader or a coach trying to tell you there's reason for hope. No, this is very real. And when she had done a lot of research looking at any factors that affected radical remissions, and she said that in every case, there was always this element of hope. And then I want to read from my book, Doctor's Orders Go Fishing, something that always stood out for me around the idea of doctors and others being so concerned about telling you the real truth of what's going on, because you need to be able to make an informed choice. So they need to tell you truly your diagnosis and prognosis and so forth. But so often in this field, people like me are accused of giving people false hope. So here we go. This is Dr. Patricia Norris, a quote from the journal Biofeedback and Self-Regulation. Some belief, hope, and confidence that what one is attempting is possible, even though not guaranteed, is essential. To learn to dive, tumble, win a swim meet, or eliminate a wart or tumor, one must believe it is possible. Suppose an athlete trying out for the Olympics was told by a coach, "Don't get your expectations up. I don't want you to have any false hopes. Don't forget, only one person can get a gold medal, and most people won't even make it past the trials. The chances of you winning or even getting to the Olympics at all are pretty remote." It's not hard to imagine what the effects of such realism would be on achievement. So, for what it's worth. Thank you. Now I'll lead you in a meditation. Okay. Let me just start and open. Okay, thanks. So if you will please make yourself comfortable. And please close your eyes as a way of helping you focus your attention. One of the things I thought about in preparing this meditation, and why I called my talk today Faith, Hope, and Truth, whereas in Jeff's song I talked about Paul's message of faith, hope, and love, is I think it can be very helpful to really think about truth. And is there really a great truth? Anything that holds true always? And in my thoughts, I thought about the idea of God is, love is, grace is. And even like Pearl's statement, we can do anything. We can change the world. So I'd like to invite you now, just like I asked Ryan to make a connection with what he came to call Pearl, is to now ask to connect with your spiritual intelligence. This very wise, loving, spiritual part of us, a core, eternal truth of who we are. Please take your time in doing this. And then as you begin to connect with your greater being, please ask for a message of hope. Take your time.
Thank you, Dean. That was a wonderful message. I know I resonated with it. I know there's lots of you out there who have been through experiences where you need those reminders about faith, hope, and truth. Thank you. This is our time of service for our basket to go around for offerings. If I could ask Judy to help out with that, I appreciate it. Our community partner for July and August is Backpack for Kids. And you'll see in the basket there's a slot for that. And the other one is for our own Unitarian Fellowship to contribute to. And so Judy's going to pass that around to each table and give as you can. If you're not able to give, please put a blessing in there anyway. If you run your hand over it, give it a little hope for truth. We go around. And for those of you viewing this later at home, if you would like to donate, you can always send a check to P.O. Box 2502, Florence 97439. Or if you go on our website, you can hit that donate button and donate that way. It's very easy. So, before the basket goes around, let's do our blessing. Divine love through me.
Divine love through me.
Blesses and multiplies all that I am.
Blesses and multiplies all that I am.
All that I give.
All that I give.
And all that I receive.
All that I receive.
I am prosperous now.
I am prosperous now.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
We thank you for your spiritual practice of giving and loving. Your contributions and love are received in grateful appreciation. All right, it's time to extinguish our chalice. Would you like to do that for us, Judy? As I share by Cynthia Landrum, be true, be well, be loving. We leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for each other. Our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving. So it is. Yes, Steve. What?
I'd like to say one more thing.
You bet, you can always say one more thing.
I apologize, I should have said this earlier. And I know Sally would be so pleased that I'm finally going to say this. She'd asked me to really make sure that you know about the meditation class that I offer on Zoom the first Tuesday of every month. So please, if you would like to learn to go within, I don't care what your experience has been. Remember, Ryan had no experience whatsoever with this. You can go within and make this connection. The first Tuesday of every month, 5:15 in the evening for 1 hour, and it's always listed on your FUUF bulletin, so, but please, I would love to help you with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean, as usual, for your powerful message and for joining with us, even remotely. We get so much out of it. And what was I going to say about that? Forgot. I know that I forgot some things today, probably.
You did great.
Thank you so much. I wasn't asking for that. I really wasn't. Thank you.
You should have.
Oh, and I was going to say, join Dean after the service if you'd like to know more about Going Within. And I've read his books, and there's just such wonderful advice in there and sharing. I love the personal stories they share. I relate to them, having gone through some things myself, and I'm sure so many of you do also. So, let's stand and form a circle and sing our peace song, shall we?
Okay, we need to, oh, thank you.
Yep.